Another important aspect which affects demand, which directly influences demand, or which determines the demand is taste, habit, and fashion of a consumer. Yes, if there are changes in taste, habit, and fashions of a consumer, there are effective changes happens or according changes happens in the demand of those products. Let us take some example to understand. I'll start with example of taste. See, earlier I was very happy to have a kachori as a snack. So whenever I used to go out, I used to demand kachori. Now my taste has shifted from kachori to samosa. Now automatically what has happened? The time I had a taste for specific thing, its demand is higher. Now my taste has shifted from kachori to samosa. Demand for kachori has gone down and demand for samosa has increased. Another example I will give that when there is a change in the taste of a commodity, so if I have an increase in the taste of a specific commodity, its demand will be more, and if there is a decrease in the taste of a commodity, its demand will be less. Let's say another example that every night I prefer having an ice cream. So the demand for ice cream has increased. But after a couple of weeks, what has happened? Now my taste for ice cream has changed. Now I love to have thick shakes. So my demand for ice cream has gone down, but my demand for thick shakes have gone up. So if I happen to notice that as my taste changes, my demand accordingly changes. So if I have a taste for something, I have a liking for something, then demand for that product will be high. And if I change my taste from one or my liking from one product to another, my demand for the other product increases. This happens for the whole population. So taste affects the demand. Similarly, many people have different habits. Many people have habits of drinking tea. So let's say 3 examples where a person drinks tea, a person doesn't drink tea, and a person drinks lemon tea. So a person who drinks normal tea, if there are change in the prices of a commodity, is still in habit of drinking tea, so he will demand the product. But a person who doesn't have a habit of drinking tea will say, boss, prices have increased, I don't want to drink. Instead of that, I'll do what? I need to drink, that's my habit, but it's not necessary that I have to drink tea, so better I'll drink less tea because it's a summer season. So what has happened? Demand for tea has gone down. There are people who change the product altogether. So instead of drinking normal tea, they'll shift to a lemon tea or let's say a coffee. So what do I understand? That habits are there, but there is a change in the habit and it effectively affects the demand for the product. So a person who changes his habit from one to other, or let's say a population changes its habits, the demand for those products accordingly changes. If there are into habits, demand will be higher. If the habit changes, the demand will be lower for the same product, but the habit for the new product will increase. Fashion is another important aspect which affects demand. I'll give you many examples. Let's say there was a phase where people were using telephones. So there was a fashion that if you have normal telephone in your house, you are a rich person. After some few days, the fashion changes from telephone to cell phone, that to QWERTY keypad. So what has happened? As the fashion changes from telephone to cell phone, the cell or demand for telephone has gone down, but cell phone, that QWERTY keypad, has gone up. In recent area, now if you notice, the QWERTY keypad has gone, the fashion has shifted to Android phones. So demand for QWERTY keypad phones have gone down, and demand for Android phones, smartphones have gone up. So if you happen to notice, as there is a change in the fashion style, there is a change in the demand also. If anything product which is in fashion, its demand will be high. If it is out of fashion, its demand will be less. So when there was a telephone in the fashion, its demand were high. Now it's cell phone, QWERTY keypad, demand was high for QWERTY keypad, but demand for telephone was less. Now Android phones have arrived, so demand for Android phones have increased, but QWERTY keypad has decreased, and almost telephones are going obsolete, right? So as the fashion changes, anything which is in fashion will have a higher demand, anything which is out of fashion will have a lesser demand.